In Jamaican patois, we have a saying, bike and bicycle no done make. And you may say to me, what's the connection between a motorcycle, bike for short in Jamaica, bicycle, bike for my American friends, playing the saxophone, playing music? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you the connection. For those of you who've never met me before, my name is Kadrian Thomas, the Sax Habit Coach, and I've dedicated my life to helping beginner saxophone players achieve their wildest saxophone goals and dreams by using practice habits and routines. So why should you learn to play in all 12 keys? We're going to answer that in just a moment. As you can see here, I have the number 2 and I have the drawing of a bicycle, bike, drawing of a car, and the number 12. So let's talk about the number 1 before we get to 2 and 12. Number 1 represents unity. In monotheistic religions, they talk about one faith, one hope, one baptism, one God. In general, it represents a fresh start, a new start. So the start of a new relationship, the start of a new career, the start of learning to play an instrument like the saxophone. 2 represents duality, division, or difference. And we can see duality all around. There's male, there's female. There's left, there's right. There's up, there's down. There's day, there's night. You get the point? And there is difference, and so on and so forth. So as you can see here, we have a bike, and it has 2 wheels, it has 2 pedals, 2 axles, and usually there's a pair of brakes on the rear wheel and a pair on the front. You also see the number 2, and I'm going to use that to represent the number of keys or scales that you can play in comfortably. Whenever I say key or keys, I'm representing the scales. So if I say the key of C, I'm talking about the C major scale. If I say the key of F, I'm talking about the F major scale. So 2 is representing how many of those you can comfortably play in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, but it has to be less than 12. And in a minute, I'll tell you the representation of 12. So the first thing about riding a bike is that it is limited in its capacity. It is most comfortable for one person to ride on a bike, a bicycle. 2 at most. Now, when I was growing up as a child or as a youth back home in Jamaica, if there were 4 of us and we wanted to go somewhere and there was only one bike, we would make it work. And what we did was we found a way to extend the rear axle and the front axle. One person would stand on the rear axle with one foot on the left, one on the right, and hold on to the main rider around his waist or his shoulders. Then another person would sit on the crossbar, and the 4th person would stand on the front axle, leaning into the handle of the bike. And that's how we would get to our destination. Now, looking back at it, it wasn't safe at all, and I wouldn't recommend anybody to do that. But we thought that we could not be broken, and we weren't thinking of being hurt or anything like that. So it's limited in its scope, in its capacity. Likewise, when you can only play in 2, 3, 4, or 5 keys, you're limited to the amount of songs that you can play. And you'll always need to find tunes, melodies, etudes, songs that are written in those keys that you know. F major, C major, D major, and so forth. Number 2, it's an energy consumer. The bike is most ideal for traveling over short distances. It's very ideal for going to the corner shop, the store down the road, the deli, around the neighborhood, and so on. But it's not ideal for going over long distances. Unless you are an athlete and you are about to compete in Tour de France, you would not necessarily want to be riding a bicycle from Queens to Brooklyn, New York, would you? No, because it's time consuming, it takes a lot of energy, and it would take a lot of time to get there. And I know all too well about that, because while I attended high school back in Jamaica, there were times when there was not enough money for me to pay for the 3 legs of the journey to get to school, and I had to ride the first leg of the journey, park my bike at a police station, go to school, then in the evening I would get on my bike and go back home. The first leg of the journey was easy in the morning because it was early, the air was fresh, it was cool, the sun, she had not come out in all her glory, so I wasn't worried about sweating and sweat and so on. It was just very cool, and it was mostly downhill for those 6 miles. In the evening, however, when I got back, I had to walk most of the way because it was all uphill and it took a lot of energy to pedal the bicycle. Even with Google and YouTube at your disposal, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy just trying to find music to fit within those few keys that you know. And by the way, the further away you transpose a song from its original key, sometimes the worse it sounds. Because some songs, no matter what key you put it in, it doesn't really sound good unless it's in the original key that you are playing in. So it's an energy consumer. Number 3, it offers no protection. Earlier, I referenced or I used the phrase bike and bicycle not done make. What it means is that the invention is not complete. It cannot protect you against oncoming traffic if you should meet in an accident. And it doesn't protect you against the weather. If it's hot, you'll have to face the heat. If it's raining, you're going to be wet. And if it's snowing, it's even worse. And talking about protection, I was in an accident several years ago. I was riding my bicycle and I met in an accident and I have scars on my shoulder and on other parts of my body and my left wrist was broken. I almost died. So I know what it is like to talk about the bicycle not having any sort of protection, right? And therefore, when you can only play in 2 or 3 keys, you have little to no protection. You show up to a gig and the musicians call the key of E major and you'd have to play in C sharp or D flat major, you're going to be exposed. There's no protection there. Therefore, you want to be ready at all times and be able to play in any and every key at any time, right? So there's no protection for that. If you look on the car, we think of the car as being complete in its invention because it can carry more people, inclusive of the driver. 5, 6, 7, even 8 persons, depending on the model of car that you have, can travel together. It takes less energy to travel from Queens to Brooklyn, New York, driving a car than it would if you were riding a bike. And there is some amount of protection with the car. If it's raining, you can wind up your windows and turn on your AC. If it's snowing, likewise, you can turn on your heat and so forth. As you can see here, the number 12, we spoke about this earlier. The number 12 is quite significant and we can see the number 12 all over. From a biblical perspective, there were 12 sons, the 12 sons of Jacob, there were 12 tribes. If we look at it generally, there are 12 calendar months, 12 persons have walked on the moon, 12 makes a dozen, there are 12 inches in a foot, there are 12 systems that make up the body. Inside the body, there are 12 thoracic vertebrae, 12 pairs of ribs that makes us function. And of course, there are 12 major scales. Think about that. One body, but you have 12 different systems that work together for our bodies to function. So when a child is born, for example, and one of those systems broken, not working, the child may not be able to walk, may not be able to speak, may not be able to see, and so forth. When you don't know your 12 major scales, basically there are some things you will be limited in playing. You get the point? You won't be able to play that. So the number 12 represents total or perfect government. So 12 scales represents total or perfect governance over your saxophone. And like the analogy that I mentioned before, your body has 12 systems and then you have body parts, the duality, right hand, left hand, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 of each kind, and they all work together in tandem so that you can function as a whole. So you have a major scale, you have a minor scale. You see how powerful that is. So you want to be able to play in all 12 keys. When you can't play in all 12 keys, it means that your music will be broken. And if you turn up to a gig and there are singers that you're going to be playing along with, one thing to understand is that singers don't sing in keys that are comfortable for the musicians who are accompanying them. Singers sing in keys that are comfortable for themselves. And therefore you want to be prepared. You want to be ready at all times to play in whatever key, whichever key, however you want to play. Now, get this. The point of riding a bike or driving a car, the ultimate goal is not the riding or the driving. You have to learn to ride the bike, you have to learn to drive the car, but the ultimate goal is to get to your desired destination. Which one will take you faster? The bike or the car? Which one will take you further? Easier? The bike or the car? So therefore, you want to learn all 12 keys. The ultimate goal is to get to whatever destination, whenever. And you're not restricted by the weather. You're not restricted by the distance. You're not limited by its capacity and all of that. You can go wherever you want to go. Play what you want to play, whenever, wherever. Okay? You want to go to New Jersey? Boom, jump in your car. It's raining? Oh, no problem. Draw for my umbrella and go in the car and you go. So that's the power of learning to play in all 12 keys. You are not limited. Take up your horn, boom, any song. And you don't have to worry, oh, that's C major, oh, that's D major, oh, that's F sharp major, oh, that's C sharp minor. You don't worry about it. You just play because you have the capacity. Your 12 systems are firing together to make the whole, which is the music. If you're having challenges playing in all 12 keys, click this video right here and I'll show you a step-by-step process how to solve that problem.